And welcome to the live stream for this Friday. Hello, everybody. We're coming to you from the Huckabee Theater, just outside of Nashville, Tennessee. Joining me, Pam Case, senior producer for the Huckabee Show. She is right here by my side. She will be taking all those questions that you're going to be sending, and I bet you're starting to do it right now, which is a good idea. So send your questions in the chat. If you want more visibility, send us a super chat. Moderators who are receiving those will pass them on to Pam, who passes them on to me, and I do my best to try to answer. We got a lot of ground to cover today. Ben Shapiro of the Daily Wire calls me out for my remarks last week on Huckabee. We'll tell you what he might not have fully understood, but what one of his colleagues totally understood. Democrats are continuing their march to try to bring COVID back because they want us to wear masks again, which most of us are going to say, no thanks. And then CNN polls, and that CNN polls are showing that Democrats just don't really like Joe Biden very much. How about that? And CNN actually reported it. Well, we hope you will enjoy being with us on this edition of the live stream. As you know, we usually begin each of our live streams with a pre-show poll. Pam, do we have one today?
We've got one, but I'm going to call out Johnny in the control room because he put something different in there that I was ready for. So now we're going to see how I do with this.
Okay. You're changing it on the fly.
We're changing it on the fly. Which thought crosses Biden's mind each time he trips? Which thought? And I really am struggling with this one.
Okay.
So I'm trying, and now listen to me, control room. Give it to me once in my ear, and let me see if I can do it.
Is it some crazy word?
It is. It's a crazy word. Say it again. Okay. So, under pressure. Best I could do. Close enough. Come on, man. That's what he thinks. I guess Kamala finally got me. And there is one for the first one, but it came out as 3 dots. So I guess that's what's...
The line of infinity.
Just infinity, I guess. So there you go. What would you guess?
Come on, man.
Got it at 39%. Seriously, that's what goes on in Biden's mind each time.
In other words, a complete scrambled word.
It's another form of what I think is White House word salad.
Yeah, but they have a lot of that.
Maybe this is the appetizer.
The White House is like a salad bar between Karine Jean-Pierre, Kamala, and the president.
Right.
It's a full salad bar.
Yes.
It makes the Golden Corral salad bar look like a side salad from Wendy's.
That's exactly right. So anyway, all in good fun, of course, but anyway, so come on.
Oh, no, it's not
did get 27% though, so it was, not bad.
Not bad. Well, I guess they try to create a new word.
Yes.
Joe tries to create a whole lot of them anyway.
Words, sentences, phrases. Yeah.
Well, as you know, we usually get a top comment from last week's live stream. This comes from Anonymous Chris Marbury. Now, he's not anonymous if he's Chris Marbury 9678, right? It's not anonymous. Maybe we weren't supposed to give his name. I don't know. We just did.
Sorry.
Anyway, he says, quote, I'm 100% committed to voting for Trump. Make America great again. I think that's the sentiment of the majority of Republican voters, according to all the polls. And the more that they do to try to destroy Donald Trump, his numbers keep going up. If they keep at it, he'll have 99 9/10% of the Republican support in the primary. And it looks like there's no end in sight into the attacks that are going to be on him. Well, here's my question for you this week. In light of New York Mayor Eric Adams saying just this very week that illegal immigration will ruin New York City, do you think liberals are finally getting fed up with an open border policy? Leave your answers in the chat or the comment section below. We'd love to hear what is on your mind and what you think about what he said. Are they waking up finally? If you have not subscribed to this channel, now is a good time to do it while you're just sitting there watching. So subscribe, hit the notification bell. Be sure to give us a like and share with other people, because when you share it, it gets disseminated out to more people. Our first story is, it goes back to the monologue that I had last week on our Huckabee show. I made a comment in there. Well, I'll just let you see it, and we'll go from there. How's that? these tactics end up working to keep Trump from winning or even running in 2024, it is going to be the last American election that will be decided by ballots rather than bullets.
Okay, I mean, is that last line? I agree with a lot of what he's saying.
Okay, I don't have audio, so I did not hear that. Did you hear it?
Uh-huh.
And it went out on the live stream?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Well, I'm glad somebody heard it because I did not.
I think our audience heard it too.
Okay.
I think you're good.
Well, if the audience heard it, that's what really matters.
Yep.
So, did we get Ben Shapiro's comment in there?
No, not yet.
Oh,
Yeah, so just set him up.
got it. Okay, because I wasn't hearing it, so
Yeah.
I thought we had started on him.
Yeah, it's all good.
So my point was, and it was pretty simple, was that if the left is able to keep Donald Trump off the ballot or defeat him by using the Gestapo government power of the Joe Biden administration, the FBI, the DOJ, the IRS, all of these prosecutors, special counsels, if they can change the course of elections by using police power to destroy the opposition of the Biden regime, then I said it may be the last election we have decided by ballots. The next one will be by bullets, which means not that the conservatives are going to go out and get their guns and start shooting. No, what I'm saying is that once the left decides that they really can't act like a third world banana republic, totalitarian, dictatorial government, the next step is then to just go ahead and stop any pretense and rule us at the barrel of a gun. That's what happens in third world countries. And I absolutely stand by my statement. I apologize to nobody. I feel sorry for some people who heard that commentary and couldn't understand it. And a whole bunch of people on the left had their heads exploding last week. I got so many notices of news stories that were all over the place, mostly from the left. But I was a little surprised that Ben Shapiro didn't fully understand it. Now we're going to play that clip from him.
I mean, is that last line? I agree with a lot of what he's saying right there. It's just the last line that you start to say, guys, you're going to need... because this is a self-fulfilling prophecy on both sides. If both sides basically decide that this is the last election, then it is the last election.
Okay. That's not really the point. But Michael Knowles, who is also at the Daily Wire, he totally got it. And I mean, in absolute form, and you can go online and see his full comments, which I would highly suggest you do because he was spot on in his analysis. But I want you to hear how he understood it, which was 100% accurate as to how I said it and intended it.
Every single thing Mike Huckabee just said is right. If they succeed at taking Trump off the ballot in certain places, then the likelihood of civil war is much higher. The last time that we had a president elected not being on the ballot in a number of states was immediately before the Civil War. That's just an historical fact. He's not saying if Trump loses the election fair and square, then the next election is going to be decided by bullets rather than ballots. He's saying if these unfair, often illegal operations that the liberals are trying, if those succeed, then you're going to have a breakdown of the electoral order. That's obviously true.
There you go. And that was my point. And I stand behind it because you cannot continue to defy what I would call a legal voting process and an orderly voting process and have a manipulation of the voting process. For example, when you have the FBI conspiring with the media and the social media companies that Donald Trump was a tool of the Russians, which was a total lie. But did that influence some people when they voted? Sure. It apparently did. What if you suppress information? The Hunter Biden laptop story, breaking right before the 2020 election. What happened? 51 so-called intelligence officials come out and say, that's Russian disinformation. No, it wasn't Russian disinformation. It now was proven, and even the New York Times and the Washington Post, who had pooed the whole idea of it being legitimate, had to come back and admit, no, it's accurate, it's real. My point being, when that happened just before the election, the American people were cheated information that would have helped them make a different decision. That's election interference, pure and simple. That's what happened. Were there other things that happened in the election? The fact that in Pennsylvania, they received ballots and counted them even though some of them came in as much as a week later than the law allowed for them to be received. That happened. There were states like Michigan and Wisconsin and Arizona where there were specific aspects of the law that weren't completely followed. Now, you've heard the media say this. Well, all those allegations of election fraud, they've been debunked. No, they really weren't debunked. They were never processed. They were never given time in court. Judge after judge after judge just said, nope, we're not going to hear the case. What they didn't do was analyze the information. They just said it wasn't going to be factored in. My point is there comes a moment in which if a government believes that nobody is going to question their power, they will use a new length of power to come after citizens. You know what we saw this week? Something that I was shocked by. The FBI ordered the Liberty Safe Company to give them the codes to get into some people's safes, and they did it. Liberty Safe gave them the code. Now, if that doesn't chill you, it should, because unless a warrant specifically says we are looking for X, Y, and Z in your safe and we have a reason to be there, but your attorney can be there to make sure that we don't plant evidence in your safe or take something from your safe that we don't tell you we've taken. Folks, this is what happens in a totalitarian state. This is East Germany stuff. This is Gestapo stuff. This is not America when that kind of violation of Fourth and Fifth Amendment rights are trampled all over. So we better wake up and understand you give this government more power and they won't just take it, they will abuse it. And that's why, by the way, I'm very concerned about this talk of more mask mandates and vaccine mandates. It's government control. This is not about our health. I honestly don't believe that the people sitting around the White House are worried that my health might be compromised. They want to control me, and they want to control you, and that is a fact. So how could we start a day without some really good nutrition in the form of a salad? In this case, this is Kamala's word salad. She has a brilliant assessment of things. As always, let's watch.
I feel very strongly about the importance as a general matter of engaging in U.S. policy as it relates to foreign affairs in a way that we pay attention, of course, to the immediate concerns and threats if they exist, but that we also pay attention to 10, 20, 30 years down the line and what we are developing now that will be to the benefit of our country then.
What you just said is one of the most insanely idiotic things I have ever heard. At no point in your rambling, incoherent response were you even close to anything that could be considered a rational thought. Everyone in this room is now dumber for having listened to it. I award you no points, and may God have mercy on your soul.
Every time I hear Kamala talk, I think about that clip from Billy Madison. The movie Billy Madison was done, 25 years ago? So long before anyone ever heard of Kamala Harris. But it's almost as if that particular line in the dialogue of the movie was made for almost every interview or speech that she gives. I want to say thank you, writers and producers of the Billy Madison movie, for giving us the perfect segue from anything Kamala Harris almost ever is to say.
It won't be the last time we use that.
It won't be the last time. In fact, it's almost like we got to throw that in there every week. Joe Biden has had his own moments this week where things didn't exactly make sense, one of which was at a Medal of Honor ceremony at the White House. He presents the Medal of Honor. The ceremony is still going on. And Joe, well, he just wanders away and leaves the ceremony right in the middle of it. Watch. There he goes, walking off into the distance. Now, if you watch this entire thing, you realize the people on the podium are looking around like, what do? We haven't done the benediction. We haven't made the formal closing. And this poor Medal of Honor recipient is standing up there like, am I in charge now? I mean, I really feel for him. He's just left on the stage by himself. And Joe just walks away. Now, it got attention even from liberal media who said, how come the president just walked out of the ceremony in the middle of it? So they trot out Karine Jean-Pierre to the White House podium to try to explain, and her explanation is about as ridiculous as his walking away.
He left as planned, as it was planned. He left when there was a pause in the program in order to minimize his close contact with attendees who are about to participate in a reception. And as you all reported that, noticed that he left when there was a pause in the program because, again, he wanted to minimize certainly his impact on folks who were there.
You know how I know she's lying? Because she kept repeating the same thing over and over, trying to figure out how can she say this in a way that has credibility. Well, you can't, because it doesn't have any credibility. Nobody believes that he was all about protecting the people in that room. I mean, if he was about protecting me, he would have taken the back way out. He walked right through the crowd, didn't put his mask back on either, even though his wife has COVID right now. And he walked in one event holding a mask and saying, you know, I'm supposed to wear this. They told me, whoever they is, they told me I needed to wear it, but as you can see, I have it, but I didn't wear it. I'm thinking, yeah, well, then don't make me wear one either. Speaking of which, are we seeing the return of COVID? Well, look, there's flaring up in some places. You know, I'm not minimizing that it probably is kind of resurfaced. I think we'll probably see COVID issues for the rest of our lives. But what we have learned is that some of the things that we didn't necessarily help make us safe. And one of them was this wearing the mask business. You know, in the very first week of it, Anthony Fauci told us, don't wear a mask. You're not a professional, and if you wear a mask, it's dangerous. It's dangerous to wear a mask because you'll put your hands up on your mask and you'll be touching things. And then a few weeks later, it's like, you got to wear a mask. And by August of that year, he was saying it'd be better if you wore 2 or 3 masks. Now you really can't breathe if you wear 2 or 3 masks. It's like wearing a blanket on your face, my gosh sake. Anyway, so CNN, I find, again, we're using these clips from CNN because when CNN begins to question people like Fauci, you know that the gig is up. Let's watch this one.
The increase in hospitalizations and deaths shows that COVID is here to stay, and that we will continue to need tools to fight it.
Okay, didn't think that was. This is Fauci in CNN. Let's get to that one.
The most rigorous and comprehensive analysis of scientific studies conducted on the efficacy of masks for reducing the spread of respiratory illness, including COVID-19, was published last month. Its conclusions, said Tom Jefferson, the Oxford epidemiologist who is the lead author, were unambiguous. There is just no evidence that masks, make any difference. He told the journalist Mayan Damasi, full stop.
Yeah, but there are other studies, Michael, that show at an individual level for individual. When you're talking about the effect on the epidemic or the pandemic as a whole, the data are less strong.
What did he just say? That's nonsense. You know, the CNN anchor was very clear in saying, look, this is a very thoughtful, well-done academic study, peer-reviewed, and the conclusion was masks are ineffective, even the N95 mask, to really protect you from COVID. He even went so far as to say, there's no dispute about this, full stop. And Fauci comes out and says, well, there are other studies too. Well, you can get a study that's made up of 5-year-olds, and they might give you a different conclusion. But this was the most scientific study that has been done to date on masks over a broad group of people and over a large group of nations. And the conclusion, masks are just really not going to protect you from COVID. So it's probably not that necessary that we demand people to wear them. If you feel better wearing a mask, for all heaven's sakes, wear one. But I'll give you an example. Whoopi Goldberg had to take off this week from The View because she came down with COVID. So she makes a video. See if you notice what in this video makes no sense whatsoever.
She sent in a little video for us. Oh, here she is.
Hey, in spite of everything you've heard, and let me just make sure you all know that it's actually me. See, it's me. I am not at Burning Man. I am not still in Italy. Can't wait to get back to our favorite place, The View.
I'd rather be in the mud fest of Burning Man than I had to be at The View right now. But anyway, what's interesting, if you noticed, she's in a room by herself. Why is she wearing a mask? I don't care if she's got COVID or not. She's in a room by herself. Yeah. Why is she wearing a mask? It's like a person that I sometimes see, they'll be in a car by themselves, windows rolled up, wearing a mask.
Yeah.
What's the point? I don't get it. Hey, if you haven't subscribed to the channel, do it right now and hit the notification bell. Be sure to like and share. We'd love to have you join us every time we have a live stream. Let's go to our audience and get some questions.
Absolutely. We've got a super chat. We're going to start from Jeff Horton. He says, Gov, I agree with you. A whole lot of people do not trust the government or election process anymore. So how can we still have hope that our votes will count ever again?
We just have to make sure that we don't fail to vote, because the one way that we absolutely lose is we quit voting. And we have to demand that officials in the Republican Party do a much better job of monitoring the election processes, not the day of the election, but long before the election, and immediately file lawsuits on the day of election if there's any funny business, like they're receiving ballots after the law allows. And ultimately, there's no guarantee. I hate to say this, Jeff, but there is no real ultimate guarantee. Whoever controls the government on any given election day could cheat us from it. But we have to keep fighting. And if they succeed, my point I still hold to is that once a government has total control over us and we can't even vote them out, we're done. It's as simple as that. Then we're done, for sure.
B. Benefield asking today, do you think the January 6th video footage will ever be released to the public?
I think it probably will. A good bit of it has. That's what's caused so many people to realize there was some funny stuff that went on that day that we weren't told about. And nobody has ever answered for the fact that Donald Trump offered 10,000 National Guard troops to beef up security in advance of January 6th, a week before. Both Muriel Bowser, the D.C. mayor, and Nancy Pelosi, who at that time was the speaker, told him no, they didn't need it. By the way, the Capitol Police, this was a fascinating interview that just happened this week. One of the lieutenants at the Capitol Police said that he was shocked that there was not an additional force presence of the Capitol Police on January 6th. They had what was really nothing more than the normal number of people who were there that day, in spite of the fact that there was chatter that there might be an overwhelming crowd and something could erupt, and they ignored it. Why? Why did they ignore it? Why didn't they beef it up? Why didn't they take Trump's offer of 10,000 National Guard troops? Instead, they blame the whole thing on Donald Trump. It's absurd.
B also asked, too, when are you going to have Brandon Strzok on your show again? It's been a while since he's been on. And so to B, to let her know, we just booked him for October 19th. So
there's your answer.
Brandon's going to be back on here in about a month.
And he was one of those folks. He was there that day, but he didn't go into the Capitol. But he still got arrested and in all kinds of trouble. It was a mess for him. He got on the no-fly list for a while.
Right. Had to wear a in-house monitoring system, all that. So, so he'll be back on October 19th with us on The Huckabee Show. Stanley Adams asking, Gov, is there any way that we can prosecute Weiss for delaying Hunter's tax crimes beyond the statute of limitations?
The answer, sadly, is no. You cannot prosecute the prosecutor because he has prosecutorial discretion. And so you can't force a prosecutor to say, you've got to prosecute this crime, but not this one. About the only thing you can do is, if he's an elected DA at the local level, you can unelect him. It's called throwing him out. in the case of a federal U.S. attorney, they're appointed by the president, so elect a different president, you get different results.
Also, a lot of talk going on about this week, too. Governor Highland Homestead asking, what do you think about Mitch McConnell?
You know, I feel for him because obviously something has happened in these 3 different instances where his brain just freezes. He doesn't seem to be aware of his surroundings. I heard what the doctor at the Senate said, that, oh, he's fine. Folks, I watched those videos. You did too. That is not normal. That's not fine. Now, maybe it's a delayed reaction from the bad fall that he had earlier this summer when he fell and he hit his head and he, was apparently going through some real difficulty. But here's what I find interesting. A lot of the senators rallied around and said, oh, he's doing great. But the other side of that maybe a lot of our viewers may not think about, one of them actually said it, and I don't know if it was intended to be so blunt, but he's raised a lot of money for our campaigns. And I thought, now you just told me what this is about. The reason none of you are questioning whether he should continue on in the leadership position is because he's raised a boatload of money and you feel like you can't bite the hand that feeds you. It pains me to watch this. It's why I think, look, we need term limits, and it's not just about age. Chuck Grassley from Iowa is 89 years old. The man is as sharp as anybody I know. He still does push-ups every day, and he runs 3 miles a day. 89. So do we need to get rid of him because of his age? No, he's functioning just fine. Then you got people like Fetterman, who's in his, late 40s, early 50s, and who knows if he's aware of his surroundings. So it's not about his age as much as it is competency and ability to function. And if anyone thinks it's cruel to even suggest that, folks, we pay their salaries. They're tax-funded public servants. And if they cannot do their jobs, it really is, it's in all of our best interest to say, maybe you should step aside and let someone step into the job who can do it.
This afternoon with the Super Chat, Star Trek Maniac asking, do DeSantis and Kemp have the power to end Trump's indictments? And if they do, why haven't they? No, they don't. You cannot adjudicate a clemency in advance of a sentence. And so, people to say, well, why didn't Brian Kemp of Georgia, the governor there, just go ahead and step in? Well, he really can't. I mean, I guess he could try, but he'd get sued. He'd probably lose, because they would say that there's nothing yet for him to reverse. There hasn't been a conviction. Now, if Donald Trump were to be convicted in Georgia, absolutely Brian Kemp could step in and say, I issue him a full state pardon. It's as if none of this happened. He can certainly do that, as can DeSantis in Florida, but you cannot do it in advance of the fact. At least, you can in Arkansas, and I don't think you can in Georgia or in Florida either. Melva Levick asking today, Governor, what are the chances that Trump can have the trial in D.C. moved, since they're saying he's 64% guilty before the trial even starts? Yeah, it should be moved. That is not an appropriate venue for him, because it's not a jury of his peers, to be very, very charitable in saying that. But it probably won't happen because it's D.C. and it's a very loaded court, and I doubt he'd ever be able to get the venue changed. Herbert Hoyes, I hope I said his name correctly. Why vote if you know already that it's going to be rigged?
Well, I think it's probably a little much to say that we know it's going to be rigged. We know that we're going to have challenges, and I think that's different than rigged. Rigged means there's nothing we can do. I think the biggest thing we can do is make sure that we don't leave any vote unturned. And I'm also begging Republicans, if the new law and the new way of doing things is mail-in ballots, then let's all get behind that and get Republicans to mail in ballots as well. I think that's also very, very important. I want us to take a look at a clip. We've got, again, a CNN poll, which I just find these so interesting, because CNN is certainly not wanting to do Republicans any favor, nor do they want to do Biden any damage, but they can't help what the numbers show. And this is a poll CNN ran with this week about the level of people who think Joe Biden is involved in the corruption of his son's business dealings.
Talking about, Dana, here, the time when he was vice president, right? Whether Joe Biden was involved in Hunter Biden's business dealings at the time he served as vice president. Overall, if you look here, 61% of Americans think Joe Biden was involved.
That's right. 61% think that he was involved into those shady businesses. That's pretty significant. And I think it's very interesting. We're going to move to this next one. This is showing some more Biden polling from CNN. They opened their mid-morning program this past week with a single word, the word oof, describing how disastrous his numbers are.
Oof, problematic new polling numbers out this morning for President Biden. The CNN poll finds his approval rating sinking to just 39%. Democrats on notice as the 2024 race for the White House heats up. Among voters' concerns, Biden's age. They're worried about his mental and physical competence, along with how well he understands the concerns of future generations of Americans. Another big issue, the economy. 58% say Biden's policies have made economic conditions worse.
What's so interesting is that the Biden team are out there fanning across America, selling Bidenomics. And I guess their message is, who are you going to believe, your lying eyes or your lying administration? I mean, at some point, people are saying, look, gasoline is much higher than it was when you took office, Joe Biden. Groceries, 16% higher. Overall, inflation is almost 17%. The average American household has lost $700 a month in earning power because of the cost of goods and the downtrodden of wages. So if you add that up, $700 a month, $8,400 a year. How many Americans, Pam, do you think would really love to have and could use $8,400 a year more than they're getting right now?
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, that's a lot of money for most American families, $8,400. And that's how much buying power the average American has lost, which means some may not have lost that much, but lost, and others have lost a heck of a lot more. That's just average. So if you're a typical American family, $700 a month is what you've lost. That is a lot of money. So another question they ask about, how's the country doing, good or bad? Watch this.
And then just take a look at the mood of the country right now. 30% of Americans in this poll say things are going well today, Sarah. 7 in 10 Americans say they're going badly.
I am going to make the assumption that the economic concerns are one of the really big issues for Americans. Inflation, not having their jobs, give them enough money to sort of keep up.
Yeah. I mean, it's just you can't defend numbers like that. When 70% of the American people, that includes Democrats, independents, it's everybody, and they say, yeah, it's in a mess. 30% passing grade is an F in anybody's classroom. Anybody's classroom. Let's take a couple of quick questions because we're going to run out of time.
Sure thing. Strawberry Rooster asking, do you really think there will be a 2024 election? I become more skeptical every day.
Well, I'm not quite that cynical, Strawberry Rooster, but I think we will have an election in 2024. I just hope that we can make sure that it is as legit as is possible and that we can honestly trust the results.
You Ax For It is asking, what else can be done since there's no one to enforce the law against the corruption?
Well, the biggest thing people need to remember is that election laws are largely handled at the state level. In fact, they are handled at the state level. And it's why that rather than worry about how Washington is handling the election, put the burden on your state, especially if you live in one of the swing states. That would be Wisconsin, Arizona, Michigan, Pennsylvania, North Carolina, Georgia now, used to be pretty solid red. But those are the states where we have to really focus. Some states are going to go blue no matter what. Some are going to go red no matter what. But those swing states, that's where the election is going to be won or lost. And we need to put our focus in those states and make sure that there is no chance that there will be violations of election law in how the voting goes.
This may fit in as well. Carol Webb asking, what can the House do to stop the states from not putting Trump on the ballot?
Don't know that the House can do much about it. That's going to be an issue that'll go to the courts. For states to say that Trump shouldn't be on the ballot based on this ridiculous, and I mean it is a ridiculous argument from the 14th Amendment, and that's because there's a clause in there, Civil War era, that if you're guilty of insurrection or sedition, well, Trump is not guilty of either one. He's never even been charged with either one of those things. You can't be guilty of something if you haven't been charged. So if they try to take him off the ballot, I do think his attorneys will immediately go to the Supreme Court. I cannot imagine that even liberal Supreme Court justices would say that that is a proper thing to do, is to take him off the ballot over the 14th Amendment. It is utterly absurd. I'll tell you what isn't absurd. We're out of time. We've had a great time with you, and we hope that if you didn't get your question sent in yet, you still have time to send it to us in the comments. Hey, if you enjoyed the show, be sure to subscribe to the channel. YouTube, well, they just don't do us a favor trying to show our content to people. The best way that you can get all of our content is with the subscription button. Hit the notification bell and be sure to check on the channel. By the way, next week there will not be a live stream, but there will be one in 2 weeks on September the 22nd at 1:30 Central Time.